Hey guys, I'm back again. Can't let me. I'm not leaving. Okay, no, take it back. There is very few, far in between. We get the happy sads. That's what we like to talk about when people submit stories that make you laugh, make you cry, make you look at the world a little different. And I'm so excited that Brendan's a human in the world. And now he's a fancy playwright, which I think the Alley just produced one of his plays. So give it up for Brendan. And him being him. All right, so Twinkies. When I was a kid, Twinkies were the golden fleece of junk food. As desirable as they were unattainable. I'd seen other kids at school pull them out of their Power Ranger lunchboxes. They were shimmering in their airtight wrappers. Talking raccoons would promote them on TV, asking, "Where the cream filling at?" Oh, where indeed, you sagely rodent. Where indeed. My mothers were not strict parents. They were hippies, free, loving lesbians. And our house didn't have a lot of rules. But for reasons unclear to me, there was one bylaw set in stone. No Twinkies. I asked why once, and they said, "We'll tell you when you're older, when you're ready." I was baffled. It's not like we were a particularly health-conscious family. At that age, I was 30% corn syrup. I just didn't get it. Why couldn't what could have the Twinkies have done to warrant such an embargo for years? I questioned and I questioned, but my moms didn't flinch on the issue. No Twinkies, no exceptions. I would have been better off. It would have been a better chance of purchasing PCP from them. The Twinkie policy irked me. But over time, I grew to accept it. And after that, I sort of grew to embrace it, you know? It became a personal identifier. I was part of a no Twinkie household. Sure, it was confusing and seemingly arbitrary practice, but if you put enough of those together, boy, howdy, you got a religion. Woo! The no Twinkie doctrine was like a part of my family's own personal faith. And over time, it began to burn in my brain as an immovable rule. My opinion on Hostess products began to sour. They became to me what coffee is to the Mormons, what pork is to the Muslims, and what fun is to the Catholics. Prohibited, depraved, pitiful. I might have gone on like that, irrationally hating Twinkies and other cupcake pastry hybrids had I not gone to college. That cerebral sanctuary where personal values are examined and junk food is held above all. One night, ramen noodles, bro. One night, early in freshman year, I found myself at a party. It was your basic dorm room, underclassmen gathering, where there was beer, pot, all the typical temptations. I sat there with 6 other young men and women I barely knew, getting drunk for the first time. Listening to someone's partially plagiarized rant about how communism could totally work if we just give it a chance. After an hour or two of sipping and toking, we all started to get hungry. We appointed a 2-person committee to go out and get snacks. And in quintessential stoner fashion, they came back with 3 bags of nothing but one kind of food. Twinkies! Say it all together! Twinkies! Bastards. They poured them out in front of us on the table like it was a take from a heist. I watched a mountain of sin form in front of me. And I watched all the people around me light up in excitement. My morals were disapproving, but my mouth was watering. In my mind's eye, I saw Twinkies being cast in a new light, no longer tainted with the shadow of sinfulness, but glimmering with the allure of forbidden fruit. Don't do this, Brendan, chimed a foreboding voice in my head. Don't give in to the Twinkies. Have more beer instead. Keep drinking until you're dangerously ill and the thought of Twinkies disgusts you again. It's what it takes. Just please don't do something you'll regret. But then there was this other voice. Come on, man. You never really bought the whole no Twinkies thing. You're not a true believer. And why would you be? What possible reason could there be not to eat the golden cream-filled cake? A gorgeous girl to my right tapped me on my shoulder and said, have you ever tried these microwaved? Better than sex. I have to go! I shouted back at her, darting out of the room. I paced anxiously along the outside hallway. Why was this such a big deal? What was the issue that had prompted my mothers to make Twinkies into my own personal parallel of Paradise Lost? Fuck! I need answers! I whipped out of my cell phone and speed dialed home. Brendan, it's 2 a.m. One of my moms answered groggily on the other end. Are you okay? You need to tell me why we don't eat Twinkies right now. What? What? Twinkies, Mom! I need a reason. Otherwise, I'm about to eat a fucking mountains of them. Are you drunk? Irrelevant! I want to know about the Twinkies! My mom sighed and began her explanation. We've told you before about Harvey Milk, she said. Yeah, so? Well, we didn't tell you everything. For those of you who didn't see the Sean Penn movie, Harvey Milk was actually a great man, revered with appropriately great stature in the gay community. Elected as a district supervisor to San Francisco in the 70s, he was one of the first openly gay men to ever hold public office representing the Castro district. Woo! He passed groundbreaking gay rights legislation. His work was especially impactful to my mothers. His work spoke to them. They were young lesbian women living in a city while he was in office. They saw him. Unfortunately, Milk's career was cut tragically short when he was shot and killed in City Hall along with Mayor George Moscona by their disgruntled former colleague, Dan White. My moms had told me of this before when I was still young, but they left out what had happened during Dan White's ensuing trial. See, White had been an upstanding citizen prior to the murders, working as a cop and a firefighter. Everyone who knew him was hard-pressed to believe he could have been in his right mind when he did what he did. His lawyers argued that his mental state leading up to the shooting had been one of diminished capacity. They said his crimes were not premeditated, but were rather the product of severe depression. They cited changes in White's diet as both a symptom and a contributing factor in an altered mental state. Before the shooting, White, who was normally health conscious, had been gorging himself on sodas and snack foods, namely Twinkies. The defense argued even though White had entered City Hall through a window with a loaded .38, shot the mayor, walked down the hall, reloaded, and shot Harvey Milk, that his crimes could have not have been committed with malice aforethought. Instead, they argued what he had done had been the irrational acts of a mentally unfit, sugar-addled brain. The press called the argument the Twinkie defense. And apparently it worked because White avoided a murder conviction. Instead, he got 7 years for voluntary manslaughter, paroling after 5. The San Francisco gay community was outraged at this verdict, and the man who they knew best how to channel their outrage into productive, meaningful change. He was dead and gone. There were riots, and things got bad. My mom somberly explained this all and told me that after the trial, she'd never have a Twinkie again. She and many other people who had been there were boycotting them for life. Had I been as sober as she was, I might have said, "Okay, Mom, clearly this is a sensitive subject for you. Let's just leave it as that. Sorry for waking you up." But instead, I said, wait, I don't get it. Don't get it. "What don't you get, Brendan?" she asked. "Well, what did the Twinkies do wrong?" "What? You said his lawyers tried to blame the murders on some kind of Twinkie-induced depression. And I agree, that's bullshit. But why are you punishing the Twinkies?" "Well, I'm not giving them my money after they helped his defense. Mom, this has been a huge misallocation of blame. Huge." "Brendan, it's 2 a.m. Just hear me out, okay? If Dan White made Twinkies or advertised for them, it would make sense to boycott. That's not what happened here." My mom sighed. "Brendan, I just told you that the man who killed Harvey Milk, and the mayor of San Francisco, only spent 5 years in jail. You think maybe you're focusing your outrage on the wrong part of the story? Maybe?" "The Twinkies didn't do anything wrong, Mom!" I shouted louder than I meant to. "They were innocent bystanders in this whole thing. And you're telling me I haven't been allowed to eat Twinkies in 19 fucking years because you accidentally boycotted the wrong people?" "I don't know what to tell you, B," she said. "It was a very emotional time. For some of us, a lot of us got it out in our heads to stop buying Twinkies. The boycotts were huge." "Yeah, hugely stupid," I snapped. There was another pause, and it began to sink in what an asshole I was being. I had called her up at 2 a.m., drunk, to grill her on her position regarding Hostess products. Then, when she calmly explained it all to me, I dug into a detail of it with blind fury. had I taken 2 seconds to view this discussion outside of my sugar-crazed prism, I might have realized that to her, this was about a lot more than Twinkies. Twinkies in her mind were inexorable. They would always be tied to a time in her life when she was young and alone in a new city. Part of a disenfranchised people who were at best ignored by their government and at worst harassed by it and the police. And then a white knight had come in. He came in bearing her banner, fighting her fight, actually changing things. Harvey Milk used to say, and he famously used to say, you gotta give him hope. And he did. And then one day he was gone. Gunned down in broad daylight in his place of work. And the people who mourned him did not get justice. Instead, they got some bullshit about how a gunman didn't pull that trigger the Twinkies did. Deciding to boycott Twinkies because of that wasn't exactly logical, but the things people do in time of loss rarely are. When good people die, blame and grief tend to spread and grow in strange and unexpected ways. And I have listened to American Pie enough times that I should have known that. I'd really dropped the ball on this one. Granted, I was hungry and drunk, but like Dan White, my mental state of diminished capacity did not absolve my shitty behavior. A few minutes later, I went back into my friend's dorm room and tentatively tried my first Twinkie. It was fucking disgusting. After years spent imagining in some Midas-made confectionery opus the sticky, stale taste of processed sponge cake and cream that's not actually cream, but it was bitter and disappointing as I felt. I spent the next few days wallowing around campus until after a week my mom called me. She said, Brendan, I thought about what you said, and I decided to try a Twinkie. Really? Really? Yeah. And it was awful. I know, right? They taste like the mop at a candy factory. We both laughed, and I felt relief wash over me because my mom and I were back in accord. Once again, we were a no Twinkie family, and everything felt right in the world. Thank you, Brendan. Thank you.